Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Chris. I'm a firefighter, public safety educator for the Longmeadow Fire Department. I'm here to talk to you today about cooking safety for senior citizens, or as I like to call mature citizens. It's a 30-minute program. This is going to be more of a reminder and a refresher of things that you already know. But as we mature and we forget things, it's good to have a refresher every now and then. Like I said, we hope to get this done in 30 minutes, and at the end I do have a handout that I will distribute that pretty much summarizes everything that I'm going to discuss in the program, and we have a little parting gift that is actually part of the presentation, and I will get to that very shortly. So why are we here to talk about cooking safety? Cooking safety is the leading cause of residential fires in the United States. So that's something very important. And we're finding that there are a lot of cooking-related fires that are happening in town. So we figure this is a topic definitely worth pursuing and talking to the public about. And another statistics that is a little alarming is over 50% of cooking fire-related injuries are due to fighting the fire, if you do have a fire, as a result of cooking. So in this presentation, there's very little discussion about actually fighting fire. So, and I'll get to that later on. And it's broken up into 4 different topics: prevention, awareness, action if there is a fire, and how to avoid or treat burns. So first off, prevention. How to try to prevent any type of fire occurring in your home. First topic is the importance of keeping your stovetop and your burners and your oven clean. Going to a lot of homes in town, obviously we don't have a real stove here, it's just, this is just for demonstration. And they're covered with grease and day-old food that overflowed over the side of the pan. People have combustible items like paper towels by their stove. I've gone into houses with phone books on the stove. So you want to keep combustible items away from your stove because it is a heat source, and you want to try to keep the stovetop as clean as possible. You don't want any of that grease to catch on fires, you know, as the burner heats up or the oven heats up, especially if you have a glass cooktop like I have, which gets really hot, and that can cause a fire. Also in regard to that is be very cognizant about not storing things in your oven. A lot of people that don't cook in their oven, we're finding the 1 or 2 times a year that they actually use their oven, they're using their oven for storage, and they forget that they have a whole bunch of Tupperware and stuff that's not supposed to be in the oven, and they go to preheat the oven, and all of a sudden this dark, nasty, acrid smoke comes out of their oven, and we show up to their house to this.
How about trays, like the cookie sheets and things, trays like that?
Well,
the aluminum.
do you have a drawer under your stove? That's usually.
I do, in
yep.
the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, in the bottom.
Yep.
That also is full, but my oven is also full of cookie sheets and, like I said, stainless steel, aluminum, whatever.
Mm-hmm. Well, we try not to use it for storage. We do have that drawer in the bottom of the stove. I know in our house, if there's anything that doesn't fit in the drawer, we keep in a cabinet. We don't keep anything in the stove other than the 2 grates that are in there.
How about like the liners, like for the cookie sheet liners? Parchment paper, like rolls of parchment paper?
I don't want that in an oven at all.
In the drawer, underneath the drawer, where the drawer is?
Well, the oven gets hot, so I would prefer if you kept it away from the oven. Anything that's combustible, you want to keep away from a heat source.
Okay.
So, so we talked about keeping the stovetop clean. We don't want to keep anything stored in the oven. Flammable objects away from, a heat source. If you have any appliance in your kitchen, like a toaster oven or microwave that isn't built into the wall or anything, if you notice that the cord is frayed, we want you to replace that. Obviously the insulation is broken and the wires are exposed, which do heat up as it's plugged in. Even just sitting on a countertop, if that gets hot enough, it could reach its ignition temperature, and it could cause a fire. So any damage to any cords, we want you to replace that appliance, or at least see if you can get that cord fixed. Does anybody cook with an apron?
I do.
Okay. Or any loose-fitting clothes, long sleeves, frilly sleeves, anything like that? So that's something we want you to cook with tight-fitting clothes.
Sometimes.
Because if you have an apron, make sure it's tied real tight. Because I've gone to barbecues or whatever, and the cook has got an apron that's not tied and it's just hanging open. And if it's not snug to you, it's not firm to you, and you lean over the heat source, you're putting a combustible item on top of a heat source, and there's a good chance you're going to burn yourself. You can catch yourself on fire. Same thing if you cook with a robe on, long sleeves, anything like that. So try to remember to roll your sleeves up, wear tight-fitting clothing. That's a way to try to prevent from becoming burned. This one's kind of an obvious one. I think everybody knows that when you're cooking on a stovetop, you want to keep your handles turned in and not out like this, because this way it's easy to bump. If you have youngsters in the house that are coming by to visit, they like to grab things, and before you know it, they have a whole pan full of hot stuff on them.
I just want to say something about the glass top stoves. I don't have one, but I've known a lot of people that do. Shouldn't they just keep that clear all the time? I've noticed people have their pans sometimes sitting there, or if they're doing something, they're putting stuff down the stove, and like a spoon rest also will be on there. Is that a bad thing? I mean, it's glass, but I don't know how much you can put on that glass.
We keep a spoon. We have it's rated. It's okay to be on the stove. We have one of those. You're talking about like a ladle, somewhere to put that. Yeah, we have one of those on the stove. But other than that, we keep our stovetop clean and clear at all times in our
No
house.
tea kettle or
I
anything.
don't
No.
know. I see people doing this, and
No.
it concerns me. I don't know why.
People
I
have
try
always
to
done
keep-
it, but no. In our house, everything stays off the stove. That's just safer the better. I like to use the term, lucky cards. A lot of stuff that we're talking about today, like you mentioned, people leave kettles on the stove all the time, kettle with water in it. I mean, if the heat's turned off, what's the likelihood of something happening? It's probably rare, but there's a lot of times where people do things and they cook in a manner that is probably unsafe, and they use what I refer to as lucky cards over time, and you never know when you've played your last card and you're going to end up having a fire, getting burned, or something like that. Because a lot of people, they don't think it's going to happen to them. I've been doing this for 40 years, 30 years, nothing's ever happened to me, and I've spent 17 years doing this for a living with people saying I never thought this would happen to me when they do have an emergency. So I always try to err on the side of caution, and we try to keep everything clear off the stove.
Now, and the spoon rest, say, take the spoon rest, don't let it stay on the glass top.
The one that we have, it's rated to be on top of a stove.
Not the ceramic or type of spoon rest? Does it has to be a particular type of material?
Ours is ceramic.
It is the ceramic,
Yep.
okay.
And our cooktop never gets hot enough to, it's never cracked. It's old, and we've never had a problem with it. So, and again, if your stove is off, I'm sure a kettle with some water in it is fine. But I think I'm referring more to items like this. You want to keep off your stove. So we've gone into plenty of houses before, and there's rags on the stove. There's paper towels right by the stove. Like I said, I've seen phone books, and people have their bills on the stove, and I think that's more what I was referring to earlier, and a grease-covered stove is just very, very hazardous. Talk about microwaves. I think everybody knows not to put any metal objects in microwaves. No bowls, no spoons, even twist ties have metal in it. So you want to be, cognizant of that. Remember that there is metal in a twist tie, and especially takeout containers. If you get food delivered to you at home, a lot of times it's obvious it's in a metal kind of container. I know, like the takeout containers here, it's very obvious that it's aluminum. But be careful if you get takeout. A story that happened to me personally when my daughter was 10. She's now 22. We got some takeout food, and it came in these paper bags, and one was foil lined, one was not. We did not realize that at all because she just brought the bag home, didn't think anything of it. The next day she put one bag in the microwave and heated it up, and there was no problem. That happened to be the paper bag that wasn't foil lined. Well, the next day she put the paper bag in that had the food in it, and it was foil lined, and she was screaming hysterically. I come in the kitchen to see what's wrong, and there's a 2 or 3 foot blue flame coming out of the front of the microwave. So I very calmly unplugged the microwave, and problem was solved. So, but be very careful and check your takeout containers, because we got takeout from the same restaurant. One bag was foil lined, one bag was not. So obviously the one bag that she put in was foil lined, caused a fire in the microwave. That microwave had to be replaced. And I call that a lucky card, because it came within inches of setting something on fire, because not the house we're in now, but the house before that, the counter, the flame was coming, it was that close from a wooden counter. So, and luckily she freaked out as quick as she did, so I can come running in the kitchen and take care of that problem.
And there's also the rotisserie chickens when you buy from the market. Certain markets have the container that says microwave safe, and some don't say anything. So if they don't say anything, you better not put it in,
Better
right?
not put it in, absolutely.
Yeah, because it would say if it was microwave safe. Yeah.
Yep, very good point.
Yeah.
Okay.
Also, some of those chickens, they have a wire that holds
They
the
do.
feet together.
Mm-hmm. The legs together, yeah.
Take that off.
You want to take that off, exactly.
Yeah,
Very good
yeah.
point.
Yeah, maybe check that. Yeah.
So, moving on to awareness. We never want anybody to cook if they've taken any medication. As we get older, we take medications, and some medications that you take can make you drowsy. People that consume alcohol probably should not be cooking. Anything that alters your mind in any way or makes you drowsy or sleepy, you probably shouldn't be cooking after you've taken that. You should probably wait or cook before you're going to take that type of medication.
Especially if you're cooking with wine.
That's a good point. So moral of the story is only cook when you're alert. So be careful there. When we work with the third graders, there's lots of little rhymes that we tell them to try to stick in their mind to kind of help them in case of emergency, so they don't panic. If they see smoke, we tell them to get low and go. Don't hide, don't go outside. Well, I have a couple for you today, and the first one that's come up on the list here is we want you to stand by your pan. So, basically, whenever you're cooking on a stovetop, it's preferred, it's recommended, and we want you to stand by your pan. We don't want you to leave the room at all. We want you to stand there and keep an eye on your food, because a lot of the fires that we went to last year, as the captain in the back of the room can verify, were stovetop cooking fires that were left unattended for not for a long period of time either, and it caused fires, and one whole house burned down. There was kitchen damage to the other ones. So very important when you're cooking on the stovetop, just stay with your pan. Stay in the kitchen. If you have to leave the room, take it off the heat, turn the heat down. Again, this is, like I said earlier, people have been probably cooking that way for 30, 40 years. The people in attendance here never had a problem, but it's still recommended by the Department of Fire Service that you stand by your pan while you're cooking on a stovetop and don't leave your stove unattended. And a little different when you're baking, when you're cooking in an oven. it's not recommended that you leave the house, but it's recommended that you definitely check on anything that's cooking in the oven. I mean, it's something in the oven, you get a little more flexibility where you can leave the room a little bit, but try to stay in the house at least and check on anything that's in there. And when you do cook, every recipe has, you know, a time frame. And there's timers, like in this microwave, there's a timer. You set your timer, and a lot of them, you know, I'm hard of hearing. My hearing isn't as good as it used to be. As we get older, your hearing does kind of go. And you may not hear that timer, especially if you walk out of the room, you're cooking something in the oven. So I know my house, I don't know how many of you have a smartphone, and if you don't, they do sell alarms that you can bring with you, put in your pocket. But I do set the timer that's in the kitchen, but I also set it in sync with the timer that I have on my phone. So if I do happen to wander out of the room for a minute and I hear that noise, it's going to remind me that I have something on the stove, or you know, something in the stove, and you know that it's done, basically, if I have to leave the room for a minute, because phones ring, doorbells ring, you know, people get distracted. So if you have a timer that you can't hear in the kitchen, you know, get a portable one that you can carry with you. Get a loud one that, you know, you'll be able to hear throughout your house. Or if you happen to have a timer on your phone, that'd probably be a good thing to do. I do that, like I said, whenever I cook in my house, I set the timer on my phone in sync with the timer that's on our microwave. It's built in. It's a feature built in the microwave. Another item here is if you've been cooking for a while, you had your appliance for a while, you're pretty familiar with it, and if it reaches a certain temperature that you know that you're used to cooking at, and it feels hotter than normal, whether it's a stovetop or a toaster oven or something like that, there's a good chance that perhaps that appliance is malfunctioning. So we want you to shut the stove off, the toaster oven off, unplug it, microwave, whatever appliance it is, because there's a good chance it could be malfunctioning. If it's you have it set at a certain temperature and then it's just giving off this, you know, this amount of heat that is not normal, then there's probably a malfunction and it should be serviced, or there's a good chance it needs to be replaced. That actually also happened in our house with our last stove. It was an older stove, and we were cooking in the oven. I was in the kitchen. I was standing by my pan while I was also cooking in the oven. But something short-circuited in the circuit board where all the heat in the oven seemed to transfer to the burner, and everything in the pan just blew out. And I felt that the stove, and it was a lot hotter than it should be. So I shut the heat off. I was able to unplug it, and that stove was replaced the next day. You know,
Is it a good idea to unplug, say, the toaster when you're through using it, making a toast and?
in our house, we do that.
Do you unplug it
Mhm.
after each time?
Yes, we
Take it
do.
out of the wall and
Yep.
unplug it? And also the coffee maker as well?
We do in our house, yes.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because even though the power shut off, it's still plugged into an electrical outlet, so it is still getting power.
And you
It's
never
still
know,
attached to
accidentally
power, and you
might-
never know when something might malfunction.
Yeah. And accidentally might go by, like the toaster oven, and accidentally push the bar down, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. okay.
So, yeah, in our house, once we're done, I mean, we don't unplug the oven every time we use it, but
But just the toaster
the
oven?
toaster oven, the
and
coffee maker, stuff like that, we do unplug.
Yeah.
Another thing that, in regards to if you leave the room for something, besides a timer, is this is called an oven push-pull stick. So to demonstrate, it has a little notch here and a little notch here. So it pulls the grate out, and to close it, it pushes it in. That's part of a burn feature that I'm going to get to later, but it's also, I'm going to hand these out to everybody before you leave. Also, if you need to leave the room, if you don't happen to have one of these, you know, you bring it home and you lose it, or if you do hang on to it, this, a spatula, a cooking spoon, something like that. If you do have to leave the room, answer the phone, answer the door, bring this with you, because you're going to walk away and you're going to go about, you know, you get distracted, phone rings, then you go to do something else, and then you all of a sudden, why do I have this in my hand? It's going to remind you that you have something in the oven. So in addition to trying to help avoid burns, which is a little later, that this can also be used to do that. If you do happen to walk out of your kitchen, to remind you that you do have something in your oven. Smoke detectors. How many times a year do we change the batteries?
Once a year.
Twice a year. Every time you change your clocks, you should change your batteries. So, and that's something that everybody forgets. So twice a year, you should change your batteries, and once a month you should test all your detectors. So that's probably the last item I have on awareness here, because the benefits of smoke detectors are huge. One of those stove fires that we had last year, the person walked away from, they didn't stand by their pan, they walked away, they went and used the bathroom, and they were only out of the room barely 5 minutes, and luckily their smoke detector was working, and they wondered why their smoke detector was going off, and they came out to an inferno in their kitchen. So that helped save the lives of everybody in that house. But we've also been to fires in town where the smoke detectors did not work because people did not change the batteries, or it was an old detector and it didn't work. Smoke detectors, we recommend that you replace them after 10 years. That's typically their lifespan, you know, just like any other type of appliance or something. It can live and last longer than its recommended date, and some fail sooner than that. But 10 years is the recommended time. If you have something older than that, you should probably replace it. So what happens if you do have a fire? Another one of those rhymes. When in doubt, get out and call the fire department from outside the house. If you don't have a cell phone, you can use your neighbor's phone. We really don't want the mature residents of our town to be fighting fires. That's what we're here for. It's not something that you're accustomed to, familiar with, and we don't want you getting burned, as I said earlier. That's one of the reasons why I put that statistic in there. 50% of the injuries are due to fighting the fire. So if it's a small fire in the pan here, and because you're standing close to your cooktop and you're keeping an eye on what you're doing, and you notice that a small fire, as I'll be clear, a small fire has occurred in your pan. Hopefully everybody keeps an oven mitt by their stove, and whenever you're cooking on a pan, you should always keep a lid nearby as well, even if you don't need it for your recipe. If you feel comfortable, again, when in doubt, get out, call the fire department. That's what we're here for. You get your top, and you know, if the fire, you want to go this way, keep the fire away from you. Get the cover on. You know, this is going to protect you from burns, and by putting this on here, you're going to exclude oxygen from getting at the fire, remove it from the heat source, and shut it off. So now you've taken away the heat source, you've taken away the oxygen, and eventually the fire in this pan will go out. Now, if it's bigger than this pan and you're not comfortable, then just leave the house, call the fire department, and we'll come out and we'll take care of that fire. Yes?
I have a box of baking soda handy. I heard that if you throw baking soda on the flame, that will kill it.
Smother the fire. That's basically what the lid is doing. So if you feel that's
Wouldn't baking soda also, you know?
basically the baking soda is just smothering the fire. It's keeping the oxygen away from the fire, right? Which is basically what this is doing too. So using baking soda is fine if you're comfortable doing that. If it's a big fire, we don't really want you to get burned and So, but if it's small enough, like the example here, and you want to use baking soda, that's fine. Again, but if you have any doubt and you're not comfortable, then just leave your house, call the fire station. An oven fire, microwave fire, like, these are designed to, contain heat. So if you do get a fire in the oven or the microwave, we recommend that you just keep the door closed and turn the heat off. If you can safely unplug it, unplug it, but at least if you shut the heat off, you're shutting the heat source off, and the fire should stay contained to the oven. Call the fire department. Our response time is 4 to 5 minutes. We'll get there, and if there's anything left in there, we'll take care of it. So oven fires are a little easier. So like I said, that box is designed to contain heat. So, and the same thing with the microwave. And obviously, if you've ever had a fire in your oven or in your microwave, then you need it serviced or you need to have it replaced. And if you do feel comfortable to try to use baking soda, or
If it were on the burner and you didn't have a pan there, if the burner has some grease, you get a little bit of plain baking soda with.
correct. Right. I'm just saying, if you don't feel comfortable, if you do feel comfortable in taking care, mitigating any type of fire on your stovetop or whatever, make sure that you have your means of egress behind you. Like this way I have a door, that way I have a door. There's some senior facilities in town where you go into the little kitchenette, you have your way in, and then you're there's a wall here and you're boxed in. So if your stove's there and you're trying to fight it this way, you're kind of trapped. So if you are going to make an attempt to try to put any type of fire in your stovetop out, make sure your means of egress is behind you. So you do have a way out in case it's not working and then you don't feel comfortable, you can get out, if that makes any sense, so you don't get trapped. And practice, everybody should know 2 ways out of their house anyway. And just, again, make sure that you have an exit behind you. And even if it is out, you put it out with the baking soda, for example, or if you put the cover on top, still call us and let us confirm that it's out. Make sure that it didn't extend anywhere that you did not notice. Now, if your clothes happen to catch on fire, when you reach a mature age, it's kind of hard to stop, drop, and roll like we teach the kids. It's a little harder to get on the floor. So there is that's still the recommended way if your clothes catch on fire. I mean, if you don't have something where you can kind of pat it out, or if you're close to your sink and you can put some water on it, that's fine. There is something called a modified stop, drop, and roll. If you can if you're close to a recliner or a couch or something that's a little higher off the ground, that's another way to try to smother the fire. If you do happen to get your clothes on fire, you can lower yourself into the recliner or the couch and still kind of roll back and forth to try to smother the flames if you don't have a way of getting some water on yourself or something to pat it with, a towel, the oven mitt, or something like that. Okay. Now, try to avoid burns. We had talked about the loose fitting clothing. Whenever handling any containers, obviously we want you to use cooking. They have the oven mitts, they have the pot holders. This is my preference because here, this is all unprotected, whereas with this, you have more protection up here. In our house, we actually have one where it looks like a glove. All 5 fingers are exposed and it actually comes up this high. So there's a lot of protection in case burns, because how many times have you opened the oven and even, using one of these, if you have something that cooks at 400, 450 degrees, you open that door, it's still pretty hot. You can still get a burn on your arm. So I'm a big fan of these. I'm more or less using that for that in our house. So we know to use this whenever handling pans or taking anything out of the oven, but it also applies for microwaves. So a lot of times people underestimate the microwave containers. They think plastic, oh, I'm not going to get burned. People get burned all the time. So still recommend that you use the oven mitt when taking the container out to try to, alleviate any burns to your hands. And when opening the containers, unfortunately, I've seen this too many times where they'll take the container out and they'll open it towards themselves, and all that steam and all that heat hits them in the face, and they end up getting burned. So it's recommended, you have these on. You've just taken it out. To put it on a flat surface, make sure you hold it nice and snug. And we want you to try to open it with from your far side, so that when you're opening it, the lid is still towards you, and it's protecting you from all the steam and heat that is coming out. It's all going that way, and then once you get your cover off, you stand away from it for a couple seconds and let that steam totally evacuate out of the container. I've seen a lot of people burned by microwave containers. It's unfortunate. So, and a lot of people, like I said, they underestimate it, especially the younger children.
Usually the microwave containers have that little vent on top of the cover. I wouldn't put something like that in the microwave because it doesn't have the opening for the steam to come up. Do
You
know
have
what I
vents
mean?
in your microwave
The
containers?
microwave containers, yeah. Yeah, on the
Okay.
cover, they have a little round circle with a flap, that you can close it
Mm-hmm.
or open it up. And when you put it in the microwave, you leave it open because the steam comes out.
Oh,
But say for storage, you just put the flap down.
put the flap down.
Yeah, just a little, yeah, they're called microwave, material.
Well, you're more fire safe than me because we don't have those in our house. So
You don't have that? The microwave pans you don't have? I
No.
would never put anything like that
we just
in the
have regular
microwave.
microwave safe Tupperware containers.
Is that
and
what it says?
We just,
Microwave safe too?
yeah, make sure they're microwave. Anything that's not microwave safe, you don't want to put in a
See, I don't
microwave.
put anything else in there besides the microwave pans.
Okay.
And the bowls that I have, different size bowls,
Mhm.
and even china. You can put your china in it
Mhm.
with paper towel on top,
Right.
or crumble
long
up
as-
wax paper and
Yeah,
put it up on
not the
top.
metal rim china though. But you're right.
No,
the other kind
no,
of china,
no,
right?
no.
But the key here is just remember, even if you want to be extra safe with yours, but a lot of
Yeah.
people, they don't have that type of
Little
the
opening,
Tupperware
yeah.
to open it this way to try to keep all the steam away from you.
Yeah.
But that's actually great. I haven't seen too many of those around.
I don't think you can buy them at the stores. I think they're special, I think Tupperware products that you can get, and it's from microwave. No? Oh,
Well, I'm going to
wow.
Google away as soon as I get back to the
No, it's like
station.
this.
It's like that,
it's
but you buy from
plastic. It's
Tupperware and it's got a flap that you
It has the
open.
cover, but then it has, and on top of the cover, it's a opening with the lid to it. It's like a little circle, round circle like this, and it has a flap to it where you close it for storage in the refrigerator if you want, in the freezer. You
Mhm.
can even store your food, take it out, and just pop it open and put it in the microwave.
Well, I'm going to steal your idea.
It must be something.
Yeah.
I'm going to go look it up when I get back to the station. I may add it to this,
Yeah, do
this
that.
presentation.
Yeah, because they're special microwave containers. That's what they're called,
Did you get
microwave
it from
containers.
Tupperware, Sona? I said I've never seen it, I haven't seen a Tupperware.
Yeah,
thing
you go to
forever.
some of these fairs
I'll
that they
look 'em
have,
up for you
at the
guys after.
churches,
That's
and
a
there's
good
always a
idea,
table
Emily.
with
Okay,
Tupperware.
well, that's a great idea. And if you do get burned, I think everybody knows to run your burn under cool water for at least 5 minutes, and cover with a clean cloth or a dressing. Any burn that's bigger than a fist, you should get looked at. Absolutely. if you're blistering, that's second-degree burn, you have an infection risk, you should definitely have that looked at. Or when in doubt, seek medical treatment. We have a paramedic ambulance in town. If you feel you need the ambulance, feel free to call us at any time. So that's pretty much.
Do not apply butter, right, or anything like
No,
this?
absolutely not. No, no butters, no creams, no lotions, anything like that. Just cold water.
What about ice?
Ice.
Yeah, putting ice on a burn.
I've heard I've heard it split down the middle. Some doctors say absolutely not because you worsen the burn. Other doctors say, why not? So I've heard mixed opinions from different docs because I've asked several down at the different hospitals, and I can't seem to get a consistent answer. It seems to be split right down the middle. But definitely no butters, no creams, nothing like that.
Maybe the ice might constrict the blood vessels. If you put the cold, the ice on where the burn is, it might constrict the blood vessels and, cause you less pain.
I've always been told mixed things too, so I was asking you.
So, unfortunately, I have the
No.
same
Now I
same
feel better
answer.
about it.
Water.
So
Guys, I put an
Cool
ice
water.
cube in the water.
that's it.
Yeah.
Like I said, it was more of a refresher than anything. It isn't anything that you don't already know. It's just a refresher, and I hope that you got something
Basically
from
common
this.
sense.
That's great,
And
thank you.
Thank you.
be more than happy to hand these out.
Mhm.
These are, and there's also a ruler on it if you need to measure anything. There's some temperatures on the back for using, your meat thermometer. So there's lots of neat little things on here, and in addition to using your oven mitt, it gives you an extra foot away from the heat. So when you're opening and closing grates, and it comes in handy if you happen to leave the room. As a reminder, I have something on the stove. So I'll hand those out, and there's a handout here that pretty much reiterates everything that I've said in a condensed version. Yes.
I just want to say, if you have candles in the house, please do not have children. I've had a bad experience with a 4-year-old granddaughter. She's had over 10 or 12 surgeries in Boston with Shriners, and she is scarred. Don't have candles. Somebody had candles in a very small bathroom. And on Thanksgiving, we're visiting them. So no candles with children. I wish they would take candles off the market. Well, thank you.
Good thought.
Thank you.
Well, that's separate from our subject, but it's a good suggestion. Candles are very dangerous, and if anybody has any questions on candle safety, call the fire station. We do have pamphlets on it, and we will give some advice on it, and you are absolutely correct. Candles should not be used around children. Absolutely.
Fire department were great when they came.
Great. Actually, I know the incident you're talking
Oh,
about.
yes, that's right.
So, if there isn't any other questions, thank you for coming,
Well, thank you.
and happy safe cooking.